All right, great. At this time, welcome to Windows Update for Business in Intune. Julia, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself, and thank you very much.
Sure, great, thank you. So I'm Julie Andriacola. I'm a senior escalation engineer with our Fast Track program here at Microsoft. I'm what they call a modern experience SME. What that means is I help customers implement Edge with the configurations that they need, Windows 10, Windows 11 upgrades and issues, as well as WUfB or Windows Update with Intune, and then how to manage all your devices using Intune. So that's my day-to-day piece of things, and I'm looking forward to kind of diving right in. So I'm going to start off with a bit of a story.
Okay, thanks.
Got some background noise here. Someone wants to mute. So a little bit of a story. July 8th. It's going to be a great day. Many people are out on vacation. You have a plan to get so much stuff done. You're finally going to get caught up on that long to-do list. You sign in, crank up the music, get started. Then all of a sudden the phone rings, comes in from the help desk. They're getting many tickets in regards to receipts not printing. Looks like it happens after the machine has been updated. You sigh, thinking, I wish we could deploy patches without causing so much disruption. After getting the details of what the problem is, you promise that technician that you'll get back with them with some follow-up, and you hang up knowing that your productive day isn't going to be as productive as you thought it was. You're thinking, why can't Microsoft fix this? Why do we constantly have patching issues every month? I'm tired of hearing my security team pushing to get higher update compliance numbers. If only it was easier. So the Windows update process creates churn in many organizations. Known issues, unexpected reboots, WSUS stops working with ConfigMan. The list goes on and on. But there's a better way to do it, and that's Windows Update for Business. So today I'm going to go over what Windows Update for Business is, kind of some recommendations on how to configure it, make sure everyone understands what it is. I'm going to refer to it as WUfB. That's what the cool kids call it. It's a little easier to say as far as a big mouthful there. So I'm going to go over the, get you a good understanding of what it is. Then we're going to talk about some distinct advantages that you may not be aware of what it can do over what you can do with WSUS or SCCM. And then finally, I'm going to touch on some common problems that I'm seeing with customers as they make this transition to this new technology. So first, let's talk about the different updates that come with Windows Update for Business. Got your feature updates. So that's moving from one version of Windows 10 to the next, or Windows 11 now. Quality updates. Those are those updates that you're very familiar with that come out on Patch Tuesday. That second Tuesday of the month, we deliver a security update plus non-security updates, and we roll that all up into one thing called the quality update. And it's cumulative, and it will hold all of the updates for that operating system since it came into existence. Then we have driver updates. This is a distinct advantage that you can get with Windows with WUfB because it's very difficult to do with WSUS or ConfigMan, and in the WSUS manner of it, it really just fills up your database and can be problematic. And then finally, we have Windows product updates. So these are some of our products that don't self-update. So think of maybe a Visual Studio, .NET, maybe the MSI version of Office. All of those can come down through Windows Update. All right, so let's look at the basics. Let's start with the feature updates. So here I've got a screenshot of it from Intune, kind of showing what this policy is. It allows you to have specific control over the OS version. This was something really important that they brought in because it was kind of a problematic for organizations that maybe only wanted to deploy Windows 10 once a year. They didn't want to do every 6 months. And so it was really hard to skip versions. But this is one way that you can do that, and that you target a version and it will keep the device group that's applied to at that particular version. It is still in public preview, however, it's fully supported. In fact, we recommend that customers use this And the one caveat that I will say is don't combine this with the feature update deferrals in your update rings. It'll make a little bit more sense as I move along. We've seen some unexpected results when you have these two different deferrals or the targeting kind of conflicting. So the best practice is assign it here, assign it to your device groups, to the version that you want that device group to be at, and then those machines will upgrade to that version if they're not already there. If they are already past that version and they are in that group, they won't downgrade. They will just continue to stay at the version that they're in. All right, update rings. So this is kind of the heart of where all of the updates are being controlled. And so I'm going to go through some of these settings. So the semi-annual channel, what most people use. We do recommend that the Microsoft product updates be allowed, as well as Windows drivers. Windows drivers I find to be really an advantage because you're able to keep current those drivers. And a lot of times when you're upgrading from one version to the next of Windows, drivers get in the way, and you got to go through the whole process of getting those drivers packaged up and deployed and that sort of thing. That's a lot of work. By simply allowing Windows to do it here through Windows Update, you won't have to worry about that. All OEMs are submitting drivers to Microsoft to say these are going to be necessary for this device. They can also submit them as optional. If it's an optional driver release, it will not come down through Windows Update for Business. Only the required or the automatic drivers that they do. The other good thing to know is that when that update gets published, when that driver gets published to Windows Update, it doesn't hit every machine all at once. We flight things out gradually. So the drivers will come down in kind of a systematic way throughout the world. And that way, if we detect any issues, we will halt that driver update and then go back to the OEM and say, hey, we're seeing this in our telemetry. You need to go look at this. So it really provides a great experience for that. Now let's talk about deferral days. So deferrals are the amount of days from Patch Tuesday. And so that is the first day that update will be available for that device. You can see here, I also have the feature update deferral period. And again, that is set to 0. So in this particular instance, we have the quality update set to 0. And that means that on Patch Tuesday, this machine would be able to start installing those updates. The feature update uninstall period we have is 10 days. That's the default. I see most customers leaving that there. And we're going to talk about user experience here in just a minute. All right, so deadlines. Deadlines are the secret sauce for your compliance. You can set your deferral all day long, but that's not going to force that reboot. That's not going to force that final reboot that's going to get that update installed. And your machine will not be compliant until that's done. So as you can see here, this example, we have the quality update set to 7 days. And then we've set the deadline for 2 days. And what this means is it's cumulative. So the update is going to be received on the 7th day past Patch Tuesday, but the deadline will happen 2 days later. So that will be forcing the restart by day 9. And so that gives that user a chance to, if they're restarting their machine at night, they will get that update installed. If not, they will be forced to do so at that end point. Now, end user experience. This is another big advantage that I see with Windows Update for Business, is that it's going to give you that consumer experience. I like to think of it with consumer devices and Windows Update, we are their IT. Microsoft is the IT department for consumers. They don't have a group of admins looking after them, deciding when their machine should be updated and upgraded. That doesn't happen. So we take care of that automatically for them. Well, we can use that same information and that same experience and offer that through Windows Update for Business as well. So in this particular case, I want to point out the restart checks. So we recommend setting that to allow. And what that does is the updater orchestrator service is going to check for several things before trying to prompt to restart that machine. They're going to be looking for low battery. We don't want to restart then. If it's in full screen mode, this isn't a presentation like I'm doing right now, it's not going to be prompting for a reboot, as well as like phone calls and significant user presence. And then the other one that I often recommend is this user approval to dismiss restart notifications. And that will be so that a user doesn't miss that notification, or in another way, maybe you want to be able to say, no, you did know your machine was going to be restarted because I know you had to click on it. And then the other thing is this whole toast notification that you get, that prompting that user for the reboot. I love how we have the ability to, as you see from this diagram, you can restart without updating. So let's say something crashed during the middle of a meeting. You don't have time for your machine to be updating, and you could just restart here and if that application crashed and get going back again if that restart was necessary without going through that update process. Now, once that deadline kicks in, these aren't going to be, those options are not going to be there. They're going to be required to do that. So that's kind of the basics and some of the best practices of what we look for when people are setting up the update rings. The other thing that I talk to customers about is don't upgrade or update all your machines at once. Take advantage of different groups of devices and group them in kind of a small pilot, maybe then a slightly larger pilot, then an even bigger pilot, and then going out into production, and maybe that final catch-all where you're getting all of this. So in this particular diagram, it's showing that. And if you set your deferrals and your deadlines to different, so your 1% is maybe the first, first day of Patch Tuesday, and then your next one is maybe 2 days after that in your deferral periods. You can get that kind of rolling out slowly, and that way, if you do identify any problems, you're able to pause updates. And when you pause the updates, you can do it right from Intune. It will pause that update for 35 days, and that will give you a chance to make any sort of changes or wait for a particular fix or something to come about, and gives you that window of time to prevent that update from negatively impacting your environment should you have a conflict. All right, so let's talk some of the advantages. The biggest advantage is WUfB can patch a machine anywhere it's connected to the internet. You're not relying on that. You're not relying on that user to be connected into a VPN or to be in a certain location. It's going to be able to update that machine wherever it goes. The other thing is, and this is a kind of the under the covers technical things, WUfB offers the UUP, so Unified Update Platform. This is something that Microsoft's been talking about since 2016, and it gives us a lot of advantage with that again, that user experiencing, the way the orchestrator works, and it's not available through WSUS or ConfigMan. So as you know, that's an older technology associated with a server, and it does not have the capability to leverage this. Now, we did try a preview of it. They've been working on trying to get it to work with WSUS technology, and so far have not yet have something that we can release. So for now, the only way that you can take advantage of this with the differential updates, it's a smaller download size, also will preserve your feature updates, your features on demand and your language packs when you upgrade from one version of Windows to the next. So there's a lot of things that you get with UUP that we just can't do with the traditional WSUS or ConfigMan. The other thing, as I mentioned before, are these toast notifications. So when that that deferral period kicks in, the user's that update will install in the background silently, but then they'll get a toast notification telling them when they're going to be required to restart. So they can have a very natural, have the feeling of controlling when that restart's going to happen. So it puts the user in a place where they are familiar because their home machines are going to be doing the exact same thing, and they can then select when that reboot happens so as not to be impactful. Okay, known issue rollback. This is one that you may not have heard about. We did talk about it last Ignite, and it's supported from Windows 10 2004 and above. And what it is it's very specific to non-security bug fixes. And we are changing the way that we write our code in a way that, as you can see here, kind of have an if-else statement. And so anytime that we do find a regression in a non-security feature that's been pushed out, we can flip that code very quickly and easily without having to do a reinstall or an uninstall. And so this is how we're doing that. You can see the full details in the Ignite video. Of course, these slides will be available later. And you can take a look at that, what that looks like. But there's a couple important things to know about this. Is one, it doesn't happen very often because it only applies to non-security fixes. If a security fix if we're patching a vulnerability and it breaks something and becomes a known issue, we're not going to use known issue rollback because that's a security patch and we want that machine to be secure. We don't want people uninstalling for that security patch. And so we're going to do that. I didn't say that very clearly. Let me back up. We need to keep that device secure, and we can't, once we make these security fixes known in our documentation, all of the bad actors immediately start getting busy figuring out ways to exploit them. So therefore, we're not going to do a known issue rollback with that particular code. However, if it's something that is not security based, we will roll that back. And let me give you an example. I think that will make a lot more sense than what I'm talking about right now. So this happened in July. July was a very exciting month for patching. We had a lot of things going on. Print Nightmare was kind of a big in the headlines, and I'm sure a lot of you had to deal with that out-of-band patch, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But we also had a known issue rollback during that time. So we have multiple releases of updates during a month. So Patch Tuesday, that comes out, that has the security patches, happens every month. We also have something that we like to call a C or D release. That is our non-security patches. So it'll be labeled a preview patch, and it doesn't contain anything that's new. It doesn't contain any new security fixes in it, but it does have bug fixes and things like that. And so when we did this, and you'll notice here that this problem originated on 6/21/2021. That was the C release. And so we realized that we were affecting some receipt or label printers very specifically with that feature that we had been working on. But we didn't know about it until people started installing all of this out-of-band release, which happened on the 8th. Now you'll notice here, I love this, that we found the issue. We documented the issue at 16:40 Pacific time, and we resolved it with the known issue rollback just 16 minutes later. And what that means is that's just going to automatically flip that code. Now, if you are using WSUS or ConfigMan, you don't get this functionality because, again, this is using that WUfB engine, and it will happen automatically for your Windows Update for Business, but not for your others. Now, you can still leverage it as it talks about here. You can download a special group policy and push that out. And we all know the amount of work that would take, as opposed to it just being taken care of for you. So this is a really great advantage that you can use that will reduce the amount of impact that you might see from updates. All right, so we mentioned the out-of-band patches, and that was also a gap that we had with Windows Update for Business. And that if a patch came out that needed to go out right away, like a 0-day, such as Print Nightmare, you would have to go back and reset all of your deferral and deadlines with all your update rings in order to get that patch out there. Not ideal, not what we want. So we have this policy now that can expedite a security update. It's very specific. It will only do security updates. So you see from this screenshot, this was our out-of-band patch that I mentioned that came out on the 6th, and you then set the deadline. So there's no nice user experience. They'll still get the toast notifications and such, but they're not going to have the ability to defer. When you set that, when that restart's going to happen, it's going to happen. So this is really just for that out of band. You need to get patched now. There's no waiting for that. It also delivers this more aggressively and is sending a notification to the device that is being asked to get this policy, download installed and restarted, so that you have that too. And you don't have to touch your update ring. So your update rings stay the same. This just overrides those and just gets the job done. It also has some reporting attached to it, so you can show where your devices are, how many have finished this process. But I do have a couple caveats that we saw, especially with this. This was the very first time that people used this with that print nightmare out of band patch. And if the machine is brand new to Windows Update, then they are not going to, those machines will not have what we call the Windows Health, Windows Update Health program. And that is what's used. That came out in May, but if the machine, and is only applicable to machines that are getting Windows Update. So your machines that are being serviced with Configuration Manager or WSUS, they won't get that patch because it's not relevant. So if a device is newly pointing to Windows Update for their updates, this didn't install. So the message there is make sure that you're getting your machines up into Windows Update for Business before you're going to need this. It's not something that's going to save you right after the that comes out if your machines are not typically getting their updates from Windows Update. The other thing we have is a safeguard holds. So this is something, again, that's unique to WUfB. It's not something that WSUS can do, and that is dealing with known issues for the Windows 10 upgrades. It'll also apply to Windows 11. We haven't had those just yet because it's brand new. But when we know that there's a machine is going to have an issue upgrading, we can put a stop on that. So in this particular example, we had last year where we had an issue that we knew about with the coaxiant audio drivers. The machine would upgrade to the next version of Windows 10 without a problem. However, the user would be left with no audio. Remote work world, that's bad. So what we did is we put a safeguard hold. And what Windows Update would do is if it saw that that machine had that particular driver in it, it would not allow it to upgrade to Windows 10 until the circumstances had changed and the fixes were in place, that upgrade could proceed without losing that audio. So it's a great way to have that information or have that assurance that you're going to get the best upgrade experience possible. Now, it can be a little frustrating for admins because you may say, hey, I have this device group of 100 devices and I've got 30 devices that aren't upgrading. Why aren't they upgrading? Well, it could be that they're under a safeguard hold, and it's kind of hard to see that. We've done a little bit more reporting that surfaces it up, but the best thing that you can do is use update compliance, and I'll show you a little bit more about that, where you can get very granular and understand exactly what safeguard holds your environment is under and what the status of those is. Okay, update reporting. We're talking about Windows Update for Business. You're going to hear the good and you're going to hear the room for improvement. And update reporting is a place where we still have room to improve. If you're used to the very granular update reports that you might get from Configuration Manager, there isn't exactly the equivalent in Intune natively. Lots of people have done some custom reporting and such, and there's lots of good information out there about how people are solving that problem, but it's still an opportunity area for Intune, and we know it, and Microsoft is working on it. We do have new reports for feature updates, which is great, so you can kind of see where your Windows 10 upgrades, where they're at and what's happening there, as well as that expedited update. That's super important. Get that patch out there now. You have the reporting to support that, those pieces. So what the other piece that really brings it all together is update compliance. So let's talk update compliance. It is a free Azure solution. If you think back to, if you were familiar with Windows Analytics, update compliance was part of that. It's been separated out now, but it is still a free Azure solution. It does require a subscription, and it uses log analytics and Windows telemetry to give you a full picture and with more information about what the Windows updates are doing in your environment. So here you can see from the screenshot, this very much shows you what needs attention, what the update status is on where they are on the latest, as well as the feature updates. And also, interestingly enough, will give you your delivery optimization status, what's being consumed in the forms of delivery optimization. Okay, so I mentioned about safeguard holds, and part of the update compliance solution that a lot of people don't realize is there is a workbook within there that will surface up exactly what devices are under safeguard holds and which ones they're under. So you can see here from this screenshot, you've got some example devices and the device, the OS that they're being targeted to. And here are some various safeguard holds that are in place. And so from there, you can then take those numbers, look those up in the Windows Release Health. We document what these numbers are, what they correspond to. It takes a little bit searching maybe sometimes to find that. I think we can still improve the ability to find those corresponding safeguard holds so that you know what's happening. But for now, this is what we've got, and it's much, much better than what we had even 6 months ago. Another brand new thing, in fact, it's still coming. We have some screenshots of what it's going to look like, but they haven't released it just yet. And that is Windows 11 readiness status. Update compliance is going to have a more in-depth reporting of the status of being machines identified ready to go to Windows 11. As you may know, or you'll be learning more about, is Windows 11 has some hardware requirements that are very specific, and that is a piece of the upgrade process that we all now need to think about. And so this report will be very helpful. Again, it's built into update compliance. It's a workbook that's specifically in there. And because all of this update compliance is built on log analytics, it's very customizable. It's all the Custo language query, and it can be customized to and tied in with Power BI and all of that sort of reporting on monitoring that we do in our Azure environment that can all be customized. So you can, with some work, get those customized reports that are meaningful for your organization. Okay, another thing, if what I've talked about is still not granular enough for what your organization needs, we do have the Windows Update Deployment Service. So this is a relatively new piece of things, and it will give you some very granular control of your updates. So it can control timing. It can also look at failure thresholds, stage rollout, and just some overall monitoring rules. And where this, I think, really shines is for feature updates. So say you have a large group of devices. Maybe you have 2,000 devices. They all need to get upgraded to the next version of Windows 10. You don't want them to do it all within the same week. So you could use this service to say, all right, and write this PowerShell or use the Graph API to set this up so that over those 3 months, they would upgrade in groups of 500 with 2 weeks in between each group. And that can all be done through this. Again, it's not native into into Intune. You won't see that granularity there. You have to go in and use the Graph API and or PowerShell. So it does require a little bit higher level of work in order to leverage this, but it is new, it's there, and you can really do some amazing things with it. Another thing that's coming that is super cool, everybody's been very, very excited about it, is drivers and firmware. So we know we can push drivers and firmware from Windows Update to the devices, but you don't have any control. So you can't control the scheduling, you can't control which of drivers that you need. And one example would be, say you had maybe a call center software that this particular audio driver at this particular version breaks it. So you need to stay less than that. And so this service will be able to, you can hold at a particular driver level for a particular driver. So you would approve each of your driver updates. So this was very popular. It was announced last Ignite. I've got the link to the sessions there. Stay tuned. Ignite is happening in 2 weeks. There will be more about this. So prioritize going to those sessions. I think you'll be thrilled at all the work that they've been doing with this and what's coming with that. So this is a really nice feature that's also available or coming available. Now we've talked about all this content, right? Upgrades, monthly updates. That can come out to a lot of content. So how do you minimize the network impact? So we have 2 technologies that you should be looking at. One is delivery optimization, and the other is Microsoft Connected Cache. Delivery optimization is just the sharing of the content between neighboring devices. It's controlled from the cloud. We've had it for quite some time. It is configurable, and that's a great way to manage that. Also, Microsoft Connected Cache, that works in complement with Configuration Manager. So you'll be able to use your existing distribution points as a repository for Windows updates, for Windows Store apps, Edge, Office 360, or M365, all of those apps. All of that content then can be put onto the distribution points in the form of a connected cache. So that does have a dependency on Configuration Manager, but it's available and can help minimize your network impact when the devices are like on your on-prem network. All right, Windows 11. So what do I need to know about Windows 11 and updates? First, and most importantly, managed devices will not automatically upgrade. There's another version of Windows 10 that's coming out this fall. That's what devices will be looking to automatically update to, depending on how you set your policies. But Windows 11 has to be specifically requested. With that feature update policy that I showed first thing, that's the only policy that can move a managed device. So that's a device managed by Intune, another third-party MDM or configuration manager. Those are the devices that are being controlled and will not automatically move to Windows 11. The other great thing is Windows 11 updates are 40% smaller. So they've been doing a lot of work with the differential updates. I mentioned earlier that that's an advantage that you get with WUfB, and they've taken it even further with Windows 11. And I've got some links here that you can kind of dive into the gory details of all of the pieces that go into this differential updates and how they're changing their programming and how that's being executed. So you can check that out. And then the other thing, this is also in current versions of Windows 10, but we're combining both the cumulative update as well as the servicing stack update into one patch. So no more trying to figure out how do I get the servicing stack update installed in a different time than I'm doing this cumulative update, and it needs to be first. And it was just a big problem that everybody was dealing with. And so finally we've got that technology down so that we can combine them into one. And Windows Update for Business handles that beautifully. You're not going to have to worry about supersedence rules and such like that, which has been kind of a bit of a turmoil recently. It'll just be taken care of through Windows Update for Business. All right, so we've got a few minutes left here, 25 minutes left. I want to talk about, all right, I've convinced you Windows Update for Business has got some advantages and you want to get going on it, but maybe you've tried it and your machines just aren't updating. So let's look at the common problems. The most common problem, in fact, typically is the number one problem is that you have conflicting policies coming from Intune or MEM, and you have GPOs hitting that same device. So this affects if you've got hybrid Azure AD joined devices that are co-managed, and you have GPOs that are pushing out your WSUS server or disabling dual scan, this is where the problems come. So you can see here, this is a way that you can go into the UI and check it. If you go into Windows Update, you'll see this View Configured Update Policies. Click on that and you'll see the policy set for the device. So if it's coming from Intune, It should be mobile device management. You should not be seeing group policies here. Or if you are seeing it, you have a potential for a conflict. So there may be policies that aren't going to negatively impact, but it almost always is some group policies. Many years ago, somebody set that WSUS server in group policy, and you don't even know it's there until you start having to uncover and deal with it. So if things aren't updating, that's the first place that you want to look. And that said, as you roll this out, you do want to be conscious of your group policies, and if you have any that are coming from group policy and how that may impact the Intune policies. So there's also some reg keys that you can look at. So if it's coming from Intune, you're going to see that policy under the H key local machine software, Microsoft Policy Manager, current device update. So those policies will be marked in the registry there. If it's coming from group policy, it's going to have a different location. So this is going to be able to help you determine where, if you have any conflicts going on. Other common issues, telemetry turned off. If you have your telemetry of your devices turned off, you cannot use Windows Update for Business. You have to have at least the required, which is the very lowest amount of telemetry. And you also need to think about one way that you can kind of take care of it all is by deploying the Windows Health Monitoring Configuration Profile. That's a mouthful. That's a policy that's within Intune that will set that telemetry correctly and also get your endpoint analytics and Windows Update reporting all lit up. Dual scan. Many years ago, dual scan was a problem. People still have policies that they set back in the day, and they are still impacting their environment. Those need to be removed. And then if the device is co-managed, you need to make sure that that workload has been moved to the Windows Update workload has been moved to Intune for those co-managed devices in order for those devices to not look for WSUS and instead pull from Windows Update. All right, so time to get started. Again, what you can do with this is Windows 10 and 11 Pro or Enterprise. It does not support Server OS, and I'm not in the product group, so I see the question there about is it going to be supported at some point? I don't know. We have another solution similarly called, I think they keep changing the name. There's an Azure-based solution for updating servers, which I would recommend over Windows Update for Business. It just works way better for that. So take a look at that. That's kind of outside the scope of my presentation, but that's where you want to look for that one. We can also use Windows Update for Business for the Windows 10 team for Surface Hub, as well as the holographic for Business. Does not support long-term servicing channel, so you'll still need to do traditional methods of updating those. And then, of course, as I mentioned, you need the minimum setting of required in your telemetry. If you do want help doing this, you can put it, if you qualify for Fast Track, which is 150 licenses of M365, then you can get Fast Track assistance, and you get someone like me to help you sort out your policies and get that underway. And I've got a list of resources here, so we can check that. I've left good. We have a good 20 minutes left here for question and answer. So see a couple questions about the recordings of it. Thank you, Steve. There's that Azure automation update. So that's what I would say, look at that for leveraging cloud updates for your server infrastructure. Really, really cool stuff that you can do there. So definitely check that out.
And just real quick on the update management in Azure automation, it works for both, Azure physical or VMs in on-premise and other cloud solutions as well.
Yep, patch your on-prem with it as well. Yep, it's beautiful. What other questions?
And if anybody's got any questions and they want to raise their hand or come off mute, I did mute everybody, so you do have to unmute yourself to ask a question, but please feel free. I will also mention that we have, go ahead, Mark, if you want to come off mute and ask your question.
Sure thing. Thank you. For those of us that are hybrid Azure AD joined and have that conflict between older computers with WSUS and hoping to move to the cloud, and we have GPOs applied to those machines, other than just unassigning the GPO, would we also have to remove any registry keys that reference that WSUS internal point for devices to look to the cloud primarily?
If you have gone in and set those maybe through your imaging process or something like that, yes, those need to be removed as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, you just want to return the device to its automatic updating self that's not been configured to look for on-prem updates.
Thanks.
Other questions? Scott, go ahead, ask your question.
Yes. So if we've got like a .NET 3.5 installed on some Windows 10 devices for like some line of business applications, if I understood the slide correctly, the UUP would actually maintain that .NET 3.5 with a feature update. Is that correct?
I think so. I haven't tested that, but you're talking about moving from one version of Windows 10 to the next?
Yes. Like if we were to do that through, feature update through, config manager, which is how I'm currently doing it, it actually wipes out the .NET 3.5 and that has to be reinstalled after a feature update. So if actually WUfB maintains that in persistence, that would actually be pretty fantastic.
I've not tested it, so you'll have to let me know, but it should. I mean, again, It's consumer experience. If a consumer had .NET 3.5, we need that to stay with them. So we're going to be leveraging, we're going to plan for that. We have more levers that we can pull with that UUP that we just don't have in WSUS yet.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, a question about how to test telemetry to make sure it works before migrating to WUfB. Good question. There is a reg key that shows what that telemetry is set at. But if you're doing Intune policies, like I said, doing that Windows Health policy will set that telemetry correctly. But I think I can follow up with you on the exact reg key that you can use as well.
Regarding delivery optimization and Microsoft Connected Cache with SCCM, on the SCCM side, is it really in depth as to the rings that need to be downloaded, or is it basically referred to the tenant for the settings that are there for SCCM to push on-premises devices?
Yeah, so that first device that's pulling that is going to basically cache that content onto that distribution point so that the others can then grab it. So one thing that if you've got a lot of network concerns, think about doing a ring that's going to kind of seed the environment so that you would have in all of your locations 1 or 2 machines that would go first. Maybe they're always on and they're great to just go first and getting their updates and such. So that way that'll seed the content so their neighbors will then look to them as opposed to going out to the internet.
That's a great idea. Thank you. That's great.
All right. Does anybody have any last questions? I don't want to have us sit around for this awkward silence. I did post a few links in the chat window for the survey for this session, plus a link to, or sorry, an email address. It looks like a wonky email address. I guess Microsoft's trying something new with their email addresses into Teams, but feel free to send us an email if you're looking for a follow-up, and we will get back to you on that. And if there's no additional questions, do you have any closing thoughts or anything, Julie?
No, I just encourage everyone to give it a try. Get yourself more modern. If you're already got hybrid devices, it's a perfect opportunity to start to leverage the Windows Update for Business. I also suggest focus on machines that are end user based. You don't need to do it for machines that are maybe always on and working perfectly fine. that's not the ones I would go for first. Get those ones that are those laptops that you're chasing every month to get patches on. Target those ones first, and then see your update or your compliance numbers move up from there.
And to that note, we have a couple sessions later on throughout the week. We have one with Windows 11 management with Intune, and we also have an Intune Azure Active Directory Q&A panel that's going to have people from the specialist team unit that like I'm part of, people from engineering, and some peer representation as well from the customer side of the house. And if there's no other questions at this point, I'm going to stop the recording.